children in that school district will have accessible technology, but also that blind parents will have accessible websites so that they can monitor and help their kids advance in education. Now, this is a model for the nation. This is the first settlement of its type with a K-12 school district that sets a high standard of full participation for blind people in all aspects of the educational setting. And I know that there are a lot of school districts here in Florida that need a similar lesson. So we should talk about how that happens. And we are currently engaged in a campaign to get the Obama administration to fulfill its promise to release regulations promised in 2010 that would make it clear that the internet is a place of public accommodation. We have a campaign going on right now that we call Upload the Regs. And you can go to the We the People site at petitions.whitehouse.gov to fill out our survey on the internet regulations. We need 100,000 people to sign the survey to get an answer from the administration about why they have delayed access to internet services for blind people until 2018. Kick the can down the road. Now let's be honest, I think one of the reasons that this has happened is that the business community has said, we don't need internet regulations. We are not required to provide services to people with disabilities on the internet. It's the right thing to do and we want to do it, but we shouldn't be required to do it. Well, there's two aspects to that. Number one, we believe the internet is a place of public accommodation under the law, and we are going to continue to sue every company that says otherwise. And in November, we had a significant settlement with the Scribd Corporation, which is an online distributor of electronic books. It's thought of as Netflix for books. You know, in the technology world, you always got to be compared to someone else. You know, you're Uber for this or Netflix for that. So they're Netflix for books. 60 million titles. And they started by saying that they didn't have an obligation under the law to provide access to blind people. The court told them that they thought otherwise, and they settled with us in November. And the Scribd service in the next year and a half will be accessible to every blind person in the nation. Now, I think this is the first group of federationists to know this little piece, but it's not that every business disagrees with us. See, we know that we already have the right to sue under the law, and we think the internet already applies to the Americans with Disabilities Act, so if business doesn't want regulation, we'll just keep suing them. But the business leaders, because of their active engagement with the National Federation of the Blind, are coming to say to the policymakers that they need the regulations to have clarity to know when they've met the standard of accessibility. And yesterday, we finalized a joint letter signed by the president of the National Federation of the Blind and the president of the Microsoft Corporation that says, give us these regulations, we want them now. So although Microsoft is kind of a pain in the keyboard, we gotta give Microsoft credit for being the first technology company. And let me emphasize this, because there is another company out there which many of us know and love. Yeah, thank you. Didn't think I'd have to say it, but who has said they will not sign such a letter. So I want to say, you can have some great accessibility, but if you're not willing to stand and defend the rights of blind people, you do have to wonder, how deep does it go? And I think Microsoft making the statement publicly that they believe in accessibility, they're not doing everything right, but they want the standard so they know the bar they need to leap over. That is very significant, and we need to let the administration know that we have this support. So we're going to be advancing this. I'm sure you'll hear more from Microsoft about it. And I think we should be putting the pressure on the Apples, the Googles, the Oracles of the world to say they should come up and meet that same standard. So please go on and sign the We the People petition. I recognize it's not the most accessible website. It's kind of ironic. It is the only forum that the administration has offered of this sort. It actually is better than it used to be. It used to be completely inaccessible. Look, it's not perfect, but don't let the fact that it has accessibility barriers stop you from helping your chapter members sign this thing and getting the word out. We need 100,000 signatures in 30 days, and the clock is ticking.
Can you repeat the website?
Sure. I was asked to repeat the website. It is petitions, with an S, .whitehouse.gov. It's the We the People petition site. I'm sure the president will distribute the link. Again, it's been sent out to the listserv. Bring it up in your chapter meetings. Have someone there to help people put their name in. You put your name, your email address. You get an email, and it asks you to confirm that you want to support it. We only have now maybe 25 days to get this done. Now, closely related to this is the area of accessibility in higher education. And we have been suing institutions of higher education to make the point that accessibility is not just when you get around to it, but it is from the beginning, and it has to be equal for our students. Yes. Florida is a trendsetter in this area. It's not that we started working on it then, but one of the first significant cases we had was in the state of Florida against Florida State, supporting Christopher Toth and Jamie Principato. And if you have not read Jamie Principato's story in the Braille Monitor last year, you should. Here was a young lady who was pursuing an education at Florida State, thought she knew what she wanted to do, but she had to take math courses, and she hated math. She had to take math, and it was an online system that you had to deal with math. And it was completely inaccessible. Math was a miserable experience. We sued Florida State. We got an outstanding settlement that started some of the work we're doing in higher education rolling. You can read Jamie's story in the Braille Monitor, but Jamie is now a student in Colorado at a university there, and guess what her major is?
Math.
Physics. And not only does she like math, she loves math. She's tutoring blind students at the Colorado Center for the Blind on math. And Jamie's just one of the many students out there. Many of them are in this room who are facing barriers in education simply because the technology is not accessible from the beginning. Now, we've been negotiating for 14 months with the higher education lobby. And we have compromised with them many times in the goal of getting a bill in Congress that we all support. A month ago, I wrote a letter to the president of the American Council on Education, and I've told them that we've compromised enough, and if they can't come to the table with something significant that's in the interest of blind people, we're going to Congress without them. So we've drafted a new piece of legislation that we call Aim High, and we're going to take it to Congress. And we're going to tell Congress that blind students are tired of waiting to get equal access to education. They need to do this now, or we're going to find a way to get it done. So let's get the members of Congress state of Florida on board with this bill, because we are at a critical point. Our students have been waiting too long, and we cannot ask them to wait any longer. And by the way, students, you should be carrying this bill. You should be carrying this bill. And if you aren't angry enough about what's going on, shame on you. Look, I've been a student. And I know that as a student, there's only one thing you want more than anything else, is to get through. And you'll do anything sometimes to get through. But I want to say to you that if what you do is simply get yourself through and fail to leave a legacy of accessibility for the next generation, you have missed one of the most significant opportunities of your life. If you want to know about leadership, if you want to know about how to make a mark in the world, help get this bill through Congress. And more importantly, I'm here to help you do it, because I am angry about this. Now there's another significant piece of news. There's a small company that's been trying to get to be a major player in the education space. They're called Amazon. Yep. Small corporation. They said to the New York City Public Schools that they could help the New York City Public Schools engineer the next generation digital content delivery system for just $30 million. And the New York City schools were ready to give Amazon the contract until we found out about it. And that contract is currently on pause until the National Federation of the Blind says go. And that's a significant victory for us. We have been negotiating with Amazon now for 3 months. Now, in some ways, we've been negotiating with Amazon for the last decade over the Kindle. I'm going to go right out and say that in 2016, we will have a robust agreement with the Amazon Corporation that puts in place significant benchmarks policed by the National Federation of the Blind, that the Kindle K-12 system will be accessible before the end of this decade. I say in some ways that's 3 or 4 years down the road, but they have a long way to come. And we can't ask anybody to turn the Titanic instantly. But this is huge. So I know there are school districts right here in Florida where the Amazon Whispercast is the only way to get electronic books. And it's not accessible. And it's not okay. And one of the other initiatives we have related to full participation is to get the Marrakesh Treaty to allow us to share accessible works across borders through the Senate. And we expect that any day, it was supposed to come out this last week but didn't, we'll get the Marrakesh Treaty in the Senate and we're going to get it passed so that we can get access to millions of accessible books across the world. Yay! Now the way to do all this is starting with our Washington seminar, which is coming up in a couple weeks, and I appreciate that a dozen people from this state are going to be there at the Washington seminar. If you are not coming to the Washington seminar, please recognize that you can do a lot right here at home. You can meet with your members of Congress locally. You can be active in social media promoting our issues. You can be talking to business leaders in the community about getting on board. Your relationships matter, and being engaged in the community is part of full participation. Now I have about 100 other things to talk about in the last 5 minutes, so let me go. One of the most significant aspects of our forward-looking strategy related to our programs and services and how we build the lives we want is our Research and Training Institute, the Jernigan Institute. And we have with us at this convention the gentleman who I've asked to serve as our executive director to figure out the next decade of imaginative programs in our institute. And one of the most important programs we have, a movement that we are building that is making a tremendous difference is our Braille Enrichment for Literacy and Learning Academy. I would like Florida to be one of the leaders in our Bell Academy, and I think we should talk about how to get that done. We're also doing educational programs in science, technology, engineering, and math for blind students in a way that has never been done before. We're teaching kids how to be engineers. How to be engineers. And this summer we taught kids in the engineering program how to draw. Nobody else is teaching blind kids how to draw. You can't draw as a blind person. That's a visual medium. And we're innovating tools to teach blind kids how to participate in drawing because it will spark their creativity in a way that has never been untapped. And if we don't have the tools that we need, we build them. You know, in the last 16 months, we launched the most powerful, fast reading machine for the blind ever, the NFB reader. And if you don't know about the NFB reader, I know it's coming up later in the program. It is an application on Android and iOS that has been built by blind people.
I'm sorry.
And it gives you access to any piece of print, and there may be more we want to do with it. We get to decide because we own the technology. We got to figure out how to get it to more blind people. And there are spaces we want to investigate to make sure we're in the leadership position. What do we want to do in indoor navigation to make sure blind people have access to information? Well, we're leading that effort. We're leading that effort so that blind people are at the forefront of deciding what we want. Now, there are two other important values that I cannot neglect talking about before I go. So, Madam President, I may take 2 extra minutes. I hope you don't mind. This one is very important. For those of you who are here for the first time, I underscore this one for you. That the 5th value of the National Federation of the Blind is love. The National Federation of the Blind provides a loving, supportive, and encouraging family that shares in the challenges and triumphs of our blind brothers and sisters. And from this is our deeply held faith in one another. That we recognize as blind people, we are all connected. And we may disagree with each other sometimes, as all people do. And we may not all get along in terms of our personalities. That's human. But love is the feeling we get when we come to these meetings and we know that in this space we commit ourselves to hold that bond of faith together, to recognize that we're all connected, and by working together, we can transform dreams into reality. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we raise money to put dollars into our scholarship programs. Not an insignificant thing. And that's why we spend hours a week, sometimes days a week, working on advocacy for our blind brothers and sisters. And that's why sometimes we need to call on the Federation to help us overcome those artificial barriers. Now, if you really open yourself to this organization, you'll find it's not just a powerful civil rights organization. There are connections here that you'll cherish the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, one thing I want to emphasize is that we need to continue to find ways to communicate about the depth and breadth of our organization in new ways. Every month I produce a presidential release, and I urge you to play it at your chapter meetings. And if you're not, I would ask you to do so, because it's an important part of what keeps us connected. And I want you to go beyond that. I want your ideas about how we can communicate and share information about the Federation in new and dynamic ways. And finally, I do not want you to neglect ever that we need to welcome people to this organization, invite them to be members. Invite them to be members. Because I think there's one regret that every single person in this room shares. And that's that we didn't find this organization sooner.
Right.
We can eliminate that for the next generation. And that's why I also want to encourage you to put your financial resources into this organization. We need dollars to do the things that we do. And last night we talked about the PAC plan test. And I'd encourage you to get on the PAC plan, and I would encourage you to think about ways to encourage people to give to this organization, because their dollars are doing good work here. There's one final element, value of our organization, that I want to leave you with that I think is extremely important, and that's democracy. This organization is powerful because it is an authentic way for each and every blind person to make decisions about how we want the world to be better for us. We own it. It's ours. And everybody has the responsibility to participate actively in it. That means sometimes we get a policy we like. Sometimes it's a little bit different than our own point of view, but we agree to march together by the will of the majority. And the place where that is best expressed is at our national convention. And let me tell you, the rest of the country is a little bit annoyed with Florida. Because you've had the convention in your backyard, and you're going to have it in your backyard through 2018. And I would challenge Florida to win the attendance banner for the next 3 years. Get people to the convention, because that is where the heart, the soul, and the democratic expression of who we are happens. Find ways to get people to the convention, and this convention here will be twice as big in 3 years. Now there's a lot. Someone was a little scared by that idea. It's okay. That's okay. More hands to do the work. Our national convention starts on June 30th, and our banquet will conclude on July 5th, and I look forward to having this be the biggest and best convention ever. We have a host committee for this year's convention led by 4 of our affiliates, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Utah, and New Hampshire. And I'm sure they would love to have the support of Florida. It's two things I would leave you with. People ask, what do I get out of the National Federation of the Blind, being a member? And I leave you with this, so I think it expresses it very well. And I'm filled with hope, energy, and love by participating in the National Federation of the Blind, because my expectations are raised, my contributions make a difference to me and to others, and I can celebrate the realization of my dreams with my Federation family. And that supports the promise we make to each other in all of the programs that we've had. Many programs that I haven't had time to cover today, programs locally, at the state level and local level. The promise that we make to each other that drives what we do every day. And that I would suggest is the expression of the fact that our national organization is strong and growing. And that promise is, together with love, hope, and determination, we transform dreams into reality. Let's go build the Federation.